How Clint Eastwood, the famous actor and director who rose from humble beginnings to conquer Hollywood. But behind the steely gaze and constant on-screen presence lies a life full of hardships, from moving around a lot as a child to the mental toll of early career problems. Eastwood had anxiety attacks, a terrible plane crash, and the death of his father, but he overcame these problems and went on to become one of Hollywood's most famous actors. Did Clint Eastwood's troubled past shape the legend he became? Read until the end to find out. On May 31, 1930, little Clint Eastwood was born at St. Francis Hospital in San Francisco, shocking the nurses with his heavy 11-pound weight and earning the nickname Samson. His parents, Clinton Sr. and Ruth Nay Runner, had English, Scottish, Dutch, and Irish roots. In his family tree, Clint had a Mayflower traveler. Later, in the 1930s, his younger sister Jean Bernhard joined the family. Clint's dad had a hard time keeping a steady job. He worked as a salesman and even as a detective in San Francisco. The Eastwoods moved a lot during the 1930s, but by 1940 they were settled in wealthy Piedmont, California. Forget those stories from the Great Depression. Clint sometimes says that the Eastwoods were living well with a swimming pool, a ticket to a country club, and all the other perks. Clint wasn't good at school. He had to take extra classes over the summer to make up for bad grades in Piedmont Junior High. His rebellious behavior really got out of hand at Piedmont High School, where he wrote an obscene message on the scoreboard and set fire to an effigy on the school lawn. He was quickly kicked out of school. Oakland Technical High gave him a fresh start. Teachers thought he had some talent and pushed him to be in school plays, but Clint wasn't interested. He was more interested in fast cars, girls, and improving his hobbies like tennis and golf. He could have been a good basketball player, but he chose solo pursuits. He worked on car engines, learned about aircraft maintenance, and practiced the piano so much that a friend said his fingers were bleeding from practice. But graduation was still a big question mark. His father moved to Seattle in early 1949, and Clint temporarily lived with his friend Harry Pendleton in Oakland. By chance, he was invited to a party in Malibu, where he met film director Howard Hawks. This was a major turning point in his life, but before Hollywood, he worked as a logger in Springfield, Oregon, as a lifeguard after getting his Red Cross certification, and even played ragtime piano in an Oakland bar. Talk about a crazy start. Did raw talent and lucky break set him on the path he took, or was destiny guiding him the whole time? Stay tuned, because things are about to get a lot more interesting. Clint Eastwood joined the Army during the Korean War in 1951, but instead of fighting, he was sent to Fort Ord, California, to work as a swimming teacher. It seemed like a safe job at the time, but fate has a way of changing plans. September 30, 1951, came back to base from Seattle on a rideshare. It turned out to be a cursed trip, with bad weather right away. Things get even worse when the plane's back door opens. The radios and oxygen system stop working, which is the worst thing that could happen. Things really go wrong when the plane runs out of fuel and gets lost in the fog miles from the California coast. The pilot has no choice but to ditch the plane, and sharks are a real threat. Clint and the pilot inflate rafts and desperately start paddling towards shore. The ocean fights them, and waves overturn Clint's raft, forcing him to swim 2 to 4 miles, depending on who is telling the story. This is where his job as a swimming instructor in the Army becomes life or death. Clint has hallucinations in the bioluminescent water, but he makes it to an RCA radio station, where he meets up with the pilot, who also miraculously survived. Years later, Clint stars in An Escape from Alcatraz. He plays Frank Morris, an inmate who escapes the famous island prison by swimming across the freezing San Francisco Bay. It seems like escaping death gave Clint the determination that makes him so tough on screen. It's hard to believe that Clint Eastwood works as a sugar company worker on top of his meager $67 a month pay, and he's rumored to be dating an officer's daughter. Even so, a trip to Carmel made him think, someday I'd like to live here. His military buddies include future TV stars Richard Long and Martin Milner. In the 1970s and early 1980s, Clint Eastwood traded his spurs for a bad bee and the dusty plains for city streets. This is when Dirty Harry, the notorious San Francisco cop who wasn't afraid to break the rules to get his man, was created. This theme of the rogue with a badge continued in movies like Thunderbolt and Lightfoot and The Gauntlet, where the lines between right and wrong became less clear. Eastwood also showed his comic side in the Every Which Way movies, which starred his orangutan friend Clyde. The end of this era was marked by the scary movie Escape from Alcatraz, in which Clint showed that he wasn't just good at playing heroes. In 1975, while filming the thriller The Eiger Sanction, tragedy struck. An experienced mountain climber named David Knowles, who was working as a stunt double, was needed for a few more shots of a climbing scene. He teamed up with fellow climber Mike Hoover to complete the task, and the two men were able to get the footage they needed, but disaster struck when an unexpected rock slide sent a boulder hurtling toward them as they stood on a ledge. Mike Hoover was seriously hurt and will need surgery, and David Knowles sadly died. In a shocking coincidence, the crew had filmed the same horrible scene just a few days before. One of the climbers who survived the ordeal described their shock. "We flew up to that same location and there was the scene that we had been faking for 2 days, Dave Knowles hanging dead on the end of the rope. It was unbelievable, fantasy and reality come head-on." The news devastated Clint Eastwood. He blamed himself for the death and was so sad that he almost quit the whole project. But his group, who knew the risks that come with making movies, pushed him to keep going because they thought it was the best way to honor David Knowles' memory and dedication. In the 1980s and early 1990s, Eastwood's characters weren't just tough, they were also troubled. In Firefox, he played a pilot with PTSD, and in Tight RPP, he played a police officer who was tormented by the killer he was after. Eastwood's characters fought not only outside bad guys, but also their own inner demons. The Rookie had a character whose fixation on a case put those around him in danger, and White Hunter Blackheart had a film director whose fixation on an elephant hunt put him in danger. Unforgiven was the best movie of this era. Clint went back to his Western roots, but this time as a haunted ex-outlaw dealing with his violent past. The 2000s and beyond were the years of the grumpy Clint Eastwood. In Space Cowboys, he plays an old astronaut who finally gets his chance to go to space. In Blood Work, he plays a retired profiler whose health problems make it hard for him to hunt down a killer. But Eastwood really hit the peak of his fame in movies like $1 Million Baby, in which he plays a reluctant boxing trainer, and Gran Torino, in which a racist veteran finds redemption in an unexpected way. His most recent movie, Cry, is a cry macho keeps up the theme of the angry old man. This time as an old horseman on a trip through rural Mexico. Clint Eastwood's personal life is just as dramatic as the movies he's directed. His first marriage to Maggie Johnson in 1953 seemed like a desire for stability. Even though Eastwood was hesitant to get married at first, he eventually did. But the domestic bliss soon faded, and Eastwood's extramarital affairs began to become a regular occurrence. The first child, Lori Murray, was born from a secret affair and was adopted without Eastwood's knowledge. Years later, another affair led to the birth of Kimberly L. Despite Maggie knowing about these offenses, the couple stayed together for a while, even welcoming their own children. Kyle and Allison into the world, but the cracks in the wall were getting bigger. By 1979, there were reports that Eastwood was seeing co-star Sandra Locke, which led to the couple's final breakup. Eastwood's romantic choices had effects that went far beyond the news. Different stories have been told about Kimber Eastwood's connection with her father. She has talked about a strong bond at times and feelings of being ignored and angry at other times, even saying she begged for a closer friendship. The tale of Lori Murray adds another level of depth to Eastwood's own life story. Lori didn't find out who her biological father was until the 1990s, when she hired a private investigator to look into it. Eastwood welcomed her when she called out, but it's not clear if he ever actively looked for her or just didn't know she existed before she did. What it says relationship between Eastwood and stuntwoman Roxanne Tunis started on the set of Rawhide and lasted for 14 years. They had a daughter named Kimber, but Eastwood says he didn't know she was his at first. He would keep his children a secret again in the future. When Sandra Locke came into the picture in 1972, Eastwood was still with Johnson, and Locke was married to a childhood friend on a friendly level. They first met in The Outlaw and hit it off right away. Wales, who had an intense but unstable relationship, said that Eastwood forced her to have abortions against his will, and a two-ball ligation. This toxic dynamic lasted for 10 years and ended in nasty cases accusing Eastwood of fraud and broken promises. While Locke was still in the picture, Eastwood met flight attendant Jacelyn Reeves, and they had 2 children together. Around the same time that Scott met Catherine, he met actress Frances Pfizer. It was love at first sight for her, even though Locke was always around, and the two began a happy relationship that led to the birth of their daughter Francesca. However, Eastwood had children with Reeves without telling anyone. Because of past affairs and paparazzi photos that seemed to show cheating, this relationship also ended. In 1992, news anchor Dina Ruiz caught Eastwood's attention. They had a quick romance that ended in marriage in 1996 and the birth of their daughter Morgan soon after. This seemed like a calmer time for Eastwood, but a reality show featuring Dina clashed with his private nature, and things went downhill when Dina sought help from old friend Scott Fisher while Eastwood started dating his ex-wife Erica Tomlinson Fisher in 2013. The marriage officially ended, but in 2015, Eastwood found love with hostess Christina Sanders. The couple has kept their relationship quiet, even going to events with Eastwood's ex-wives and kids, which shows that he has become more mature in recent years. Clint Eastwood's health has been a source of speculation after not being seen publicly for over 450 days. Concerns grew. His last appearance had been in February 2022 at the AT&T Pro Golf Tournament, an event he usually enjoys and held near his home. Even his absence from the 2023 tournament where his son Scott was competing fueled the worry among those close to him. However, Eastwood put these rumors to rest last month with a rare appearance at Jane Goodall's conservationist event in his hometown of Carr Smell by the Sea. He was seen smiling, chatting with Goodall, and appeared in good spirits. Photos of the 93-year-old legend show him looking healthy with longer hair, a full beard, and a casual yet stylish outfit. This marked a return to the public eye as he's even back behind the camera directing and producing the courtroom drama Juror No. 2. He was spotted on the Georgia set last November, clearly engaged with the work. Eastwood maintains a low-fat, high-protein diet, being mindful of his cholesterol levels. Clint's son, star Scott Eastwood, says that his father inspired him to live a healthy life, which is likely something he learned from his father, who tragically died young of heart disease. Scott said that Clint told him to lift weights when he was a teenager, and he still sticks to a strict diet that focuses on nutrients instead of indulgence. Whether he's acting, directing, or just spending an afternoon with other environmentalists, Clint Eastwood doesn't let his age define him. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like and a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell.